Now, with the help of Sebastian, I'm going to show you some concepts and principles that will help you understand this kata a little better. And like all the previous katas and the ones I'm going to do after this, I'm going to highlight certain areas of it so that the form has more meaning. All right, now you'll notice that in the beginning of this kata, I stepped in and we rotated the arm in a circle. Now generally, I would say, well, that's kind of a waste of time. Don't we in Kenpo like the economized motion? For instance, if Sebastian gave a right punch, wouldn't I normally block and slip off? Or, besides the block, just use a check and a block simultaneously, all right, to expedite the situation? Yes, that's true, and that's how we've been trained. But now, at this point, why would we use a pulling circle? Well, let's take a situation. Sebastian, come over here. Put your right leg back. If Sebastian punched, and let's say that I didn't have use of this backhand. Let's say, for instance, his friend had it locked behind my back. And if Sebastian punched, I've got to do something. It's not just enough just to step in and block it. All right? I don't have a checkup. I can't put this hand up as a check. And if it was a type of a hooking block and I used one hand, it's still more likely going to hook into me. So what I can do is what we call frictional pull. And that's the friction of my arm hooking or pulling off a circle. It catches on, and the friction of it actually pulls Sebastian in. And what that pull does is it puts Sebastian's body at such an angle of cancellation, that the left hand is far enough back that it gives me time to go ahead and use a strike. Now watch it again. As I move in, I pull it, and if I had my hand locked behind my back, I could pull it in, circle it, make my hand sword. All right, now it just gives you another way of checking. You can pull, and it's called frictional pull. It's a good way of using it. Now, we're going to take it a step further. Now we start the kata. Sebastian comes in. We pull it in, rotate it, make our chop, poke to the eye, catch him here. Now, when people get hit, if they haven't gone down, there's a tendency, a definite tendency, to grab the weapon that's striking them at the time. If this happens, we can take the left side of this technique and use the left side. So as I step through, I can step through and sweep the leg and break the elbow as I pull it, make my chop, make my eye poke, and then catch him on the bottom. As I cock my hands to my cat stance, again, that cocking motion can break the elbow and sweep his leg at the same time. Watch it again. We move in with the right side of this technique. He grabs. Let's just make that a what if, or for instance. My step through becomes a what? A sweep. The inward block becomes a what? A break on the elbow, a chop, poke to the eye, catch him in the ribs. My cat stance now becomes what? A sweep. Watch my bottom leg again, from here to this position as well. Now that gives you an idea, thank you, Sebastian, of how this beginning motion has more meaning. And now you're starting to learn that the left side of motion can play a very important part if you get tangled up on the right side. Okay, let's take another section of this form and play around with it a little bit. Now you know the part where I step over and I do a downward block, a looping overhead strike, punch, and then a kick punch. All right, let's play with that a little bit. Sebastian? Let's say if Sebastian came from this angle with a right ball kick. And as he came, I made my block, my downward block. As he planted, he decided to follow up with a punch. Well, this can become a strike to the back of the elbow, or it can just hook around to clear the arm. Now watch it again. I use a downward block, pop, catch this, and possibly catching the face. At this point now, I'm going to parallel his arm somewhat with a punch. And I'm not going to actually punch the ribs, but I'm going to break the elbow by making this a fulcrum and coming up against the elbow joint at this point. All right, now, if you watch it again, I go 1, 2, 3. Now, in the next move, you remember when the hand cocks back, it doesn't look like a check, but in the other tape, I showed you in long form 1 that a returning hand can be a pulling hand. And as it pulls, I can simultaneously punch to the head and kick to the inside of the knee. As I plant down, the returning hand at this point becomes a what? a check as I punch. Now watch it again. We should first execute it, catch this part here, or snap the elbow possibly, coming through, bam, coming down, and making our shot. Thank you, Sebastian. These will give you ideas. They're not rules, like I've always said, but for this particular video, it serves its purpose. That motion can be used for a completely different technique. It can be used for grappling. It can be used for missiling. Missiling refers to striking movements, grabs and holds, chokes, whatever. So the motion, like I said, is universal. It's multidimensional.